Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Joining us now is Ojy Okpe with stories trending around the world today. Good morning, Ojy.
Good morning,
How are you doing?
You look beautiful in green.
I think we're matching green and a bit of pink and pink.
Yes, yeah. I love your lipstick too.
That's the memo today.
Hold on, you didn't get the memo.
I know, I was left out today.
Never mind. But you look like Grace.
You do. Okay. I told her I didn't know her middle name was Victoria. I said that's why you're so gracious.
Yeah.
Victoria is the most gracious name.
Good morning, Dr. Bati.
Good morning. You just noticed me.
Just now. Well, good morning to you, viewers. We begin what's trending today in Nigeria. Nigerians have taken to Twitter to react to the death sentence slammed on Maryam Sanda, who was found guilty of killing her husband and was sentenced to death by hanging on Monday. The judgment has members are being rehabilitated instead of sharing the same fate as Maryam. Twitter user Jibrin wrote, Maryam Sanda is being sentenced to death for the murder of her husband, which actually, according to the law, is a penalty for that crime she committed, yeah? My question is, why are Boko Haram members being sent to rehab? What happened to no one is above the law? Another user, Papa Africa, wrote, this kind of verdict given by the court on Maryam Sanda's case is exactly what every man of the Nigerian police that has unlawfully killed anyone deserves. Caught Boko Haram members should be convicted without delay. The law stands. Stop the rehabilitation of Boko Haram. Other users toed the gender line as to the reason Maryam was sentenced to death by hanging. One user, Jake, wrote, if Maryam Sanda was the one killed by her husband, there wouldn't be a death sentence. One of 121 recorded cases from 2014 to 2018 where women were allegedly killed by their husband. How many men were sentenced to death? None. Zero. Our legal system is very misogynistic and entrenched in patriarchy.
That's not correct.
Yes, I don't know where he got
That's
his...
not correct at all. I haven't even researched it. But off the top of my head, I can think of 3 men who have been sentenced to death for killing their wives.
Even yesterday, there was one man who was from Jigawa State that was accused of stabbing his wife, actually. And there's a lot of stories of men that have actually been sentenced. But I don't know about the hanging part of the sentence.
Yeah, the death sentence in Nigeria is by hanging, yeah.
Yes.
And they have been sentenced to death. But the Boko Haram point, I do take that point. I don't understand that rehabilitation of Boko Haram. I don't get it. I truly don't understand.
Well, the thing is, it's all political at the end of the day because, imagine if, Boko Haram members were rehabilitated, there will be less, Boko Haram members on, on the forefront, I guess, is all. So if you take them off the forefront by rehabilitating them, then,
it doesn't work unless the Boko Haram people that have been rehabilitated only joined that terror organization and were not involved in any killings or bombings or any of that. That can work as an argument. But if they've actually been actively committing terrorist offences against Nigeria, they should also face capital punishment.
And that's the trend on social media. Everyone's talking about that.
Subject, and the gentleman that brought that up, merely illustrates the kind of emotional responses that people have been...
No, but if murder is murder, whether you murdered somebody you loved or somebody you never knew.
You must be able to establish the facts, you must provide evidence, the person must be put through trial. But in this particular case, we're dealing with a case of murder, simpliciter, that went before the court. And earlier on, I talked about counseling, but I think also that many of our NGOs, non-governmental organizations, who are involved in issues of domestic violence, violence against the girl child, women empowerment, they have a lot of work to do in terms of sensitizing the public about the dangers of domestic violence. The prevalence level has gone up. It's not in every case that either the husband gets killed or the woman gets killed. Only God knows the number of women who have been maimed.
Yes.
The number of husbands, who have been, harmed just because of domestic violence. And how many lives of children, may have been affected across the country. It's when there is murder involved that it grabs the headlines and maybe it gets reported and it goes through trial. But in many homes, domestic violence is causing very serious crisis. And I think it's an opportunity also for local governments and also state governments to take the matter seriously. In Lagos State, I think they have a department like that.
Yeah, they do.
You know, where
Lagos State is fantastic.
Yes,
yeah, the
if anybody, male or female, is a victim of domestic violence, you can go there. And family members also have a role to play. You know, society should not wait till we get to this point and we begin to debate about the relevance of the death penalty or, you know, what should happen to the children who will become orphans. Society can take preventive steps, you know, to make this kind of problem, more manageable so that we don't get to this point.
The only gender issue for me, about that man's point about how misogyny and what have you, the gender issue for me is those saying that her husband was cheating, how dare she kill him. There's some of them that I know, if their wife was cheating or if a woman was cheating and she was killed, they'll be like, well, she cheated. So that's the only place that gender comes into play here. But yes, you're coming.
The Jigawa example that Ojy cited, I think the lady's offense was that she was talking to a man on the phone.
On the phone or something like that. Exactly. I just want to talk about the issue of capital punishment, because that's really why everyone is outraged, just the method of, that whole death by hanging thing. I think that's really what everyone is really outraged about at this.
You need to amend the laws.
Yes,
a lot of people support it.
You need to amend the penal code and the criminal code.
Exactly. So that's the issue right now. I mean, I know in the US we do have the capital punishment system, but like the barbaric way
of hanging.
Especially when we're talking about going through correction, right? The Nigeria Prison Service has changed its name to the Nigeria Correctional Facility. There's this entire emphasis on rehabilitation and trying to change up the prison systems. And I think that also kind of extends to our laws as well. I think we do have to review.
Well, to allay your fears about death by hanging, the major challenge we have in Nigeria, yes, we may have, death by hanging in the statute books, but the truth of the matter is that when our leaders, governors and the president, they've been very reluctant, to approve the execution of persons. Two, there's also a shortage of hangmen in Nigeria. I don't think we have up to 3 at the moment.
Nobody wants to
and the last time they advertised for hangmen, I don't think they got a lot of applications. That's why the fact that we have unemployment in Nigeria.
Nobody wants to kill somebody. But it's also complicated by religion. In Islam, the death penalty is allowed. So if you're a Muslim, like you're saying, everybody has a problem with this. Many people do not.
I've seen a lot of comments.
Just in case you know somebody who's looking for a job.
Dr.
One of the husbands who killed his wife, he beat her to death. He was sentenced to death by hanging. He's still awaiting execution because there's nobody to execute him. And as you said, who wants to sign the death warrant?
Peter King has been on the death row for decades.
Like 20 years now. Nobody actually wants to sign the death warrant.
Nobody wants to sign the death warrant.
That's all I have to say.
Well, her poor husband. He was murdered.
And her daughter. I don't know if you saw a picture.
Exactly. For me, that's it. Poor children to begin with. What happened is a mess. Like, no one can justify her actions here, but have they gone about it in the right way? Personally, my own take, no.
All right. While still in Nigeria, Lagosians and many Nigerians have reacted to the ban on all forms of commercial motorcycles and tricycles the Lagos state government plans to implement in 15 local councils starting February 1st, 2020. After the news was announced on Monday, users on social media have had mixed reactions, some reporting their near-death experience in support of the government, while others questioned the alternative means of transportation provided by the government. Former presidential candidate Ojy Okpe wrote, "I imagine and agree with the problems that the Lagos state government seeks to solve with the ban. What I'll later tweet on is whether the ban is the most optimal solution for resolving those evident problems of the ubiquitous Okadas and Kekes on Lagos roads." Later. Another Twitter user, Sunday, wrote, "It is unfortunate that Lagos State is so insensitive and deceitful at the same time. While not fulfilling their own obligation of making the roads motorable, they encourage Okada during election and even use them during campaign. But now they want to ban them."
Good point.
Very good point.
Bolanle wrote, "I hate bikes and tricycles. They often are an absolute nuisance and tend to be so unruly on the roads. But this doesn't mean I think they should be banned. They provide way too much livelihood for so many people who are unemployed. It is irresponsible of a state to take jobs away from people.
Just gonna say,
I mean, that's a good point too, but you know, I think the point that needs to be made here is that it's not a new law. I mean, this law was enforced by Fashola, you know, a few years ago, and I think that the Lagos State government is just taking this option now to enforce the law. Those roads have been banned for years now. I mean, when you go on those roads, you would see no Okada. There are some signs, but you know,
and they're zipping along
just zipping along. And the point that Bolale made is that, you know, there's going to be so much unemployment. It's not like a total ban. So those people that are Okada users can go on other routes.
Sorry, go for it. But I was going to ask you a question with regards to that. Yes. It's not a new law, but would you say the government went about it in the right way? Don't forget that we're talking about Okada and Keke riders here in the tens of thousands. Do you really think they're going to now go and congest those other local government areas? The issue of saturation, yes, is going to be a huge issue, but the fact still remains. This is not a new law. Is this the way to go about it, though? Well, enforcing it, that's where the issue is.
But I worry we have to balance things. The government has a responsibility to preserve our lives, don't they? So when you see the massive fatalities and injuries, life-changing injuries, they have to act. And balance it with also, you don't want a spike in crime, which could also result in loss of life. It's a balance.
That's what I'm saying.
And I heard you also say that there's a ward in some hospitals that are just dedicated to the Okada. It is
in Obubi, in Lagos. Now, but there is also a security dimension to it. The government of Lagos State mentions safety and security. If you look at the sociology of the Okada phenomenon in Lagos, you see it has an impact also on the environment. One, many of these are artisans, mechanics, auto electricians, and others. You discover that many of them, you know, they become so inefficient. Their population has reduced because the easiest thing anybody can do in Lagos now is to just go and ride Okada. In some estates, you know, it's been observed that many of these motorcyclists, they are also part-time, I mean, without demonizing them. Some of them are part-time criminals. You know, and that's why in many residential estates in Lagos, you see people say, no Okada is allowed in this estate. So there's that security concern, but there's also the empathy, as has been expressed, about what would these persons do. And some of those things you see on the road, it's not cheap. You know, a typical keke napep, that tricyclist, is about between 350,000 and 450,000, depending on the quality, you know. And then the average Okada, you will need close to 100,000 to be able to put it on the road. So what is going to happen to all of this?
They can move out of Lagos.
You know,
that's
so
what I just said. I mean, this is not like this has been going on. Everyone's been talking about it.
For those motorcycles,
I'm just concerned about the security and the casualties and the numbers. It's really appalling when you get to think about it.
Beyond this restriction of movement and outright ban, I think that the Lagos State government will still need to sit down a second time.
I think that
see how, do an impact assessment. Maybe between February 1 and maybe the end of February. And on the basis of that, you know, they can do a review and try to see whether there are other options that can be considered. Because there are parts of Lagos that are totally inaccessible. Because the roads are broken down. So, as I said earlier, these tricycles and motorcycles, they are a product of necessity in terms of access.
The traffic
but then, I know Leila wants to. Yeah, because I was going to say a point that Tunde mentioned earlier, you know, like with Okpe and Okada, etc., and what's going to happen to them. What I was thinking is this is also going to incentivize a lot of water transportation, because months ago, Okada were in talks about water transportation, and starting to provide boats as their new means of moving people. So I think what it's going to do for a lot of these businesses is it's going to take them back to the drawing board, and they're actually going to be incentivized to go ahead and put in what Lagos needs, which is water transportation.
Water transportation in Najagbandi or Alakuko.
Doctor, please. You know what? Thank God the show.
Thank you, Ojy.
We'll talk about that tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
See you guys tomorrow. See you tomorrow.